Good morning, bows and bow ties. Yesterday, I came on and I did a video on how nothing is really like moving me. And I think I'm starting to understand why. Um, Let me just say this. Um, I haven't done the thumbnail yet, but by the time I'm done with this video, I'll do a thumbnail. Hopefully, it'll be compelling. One of the things I want to talk about is Lucifer. I want to talk about space. I want to talk about illusions. Um, so yesterday, I talked about not wanting to uh, give a whole lot of emotional energy to things. Look at these lights are like doing too much. Maybe this will cut down some of the glare. I will go like this. I talked about not wanting to give a whole bunch of um, emotional energy in these things. And I'm finding that I am sitting alone with my thoughts a lot. I mean, and I've always kind of been like this, but it seems to be growing. Okay. So I have a couple talking points off to the side here because I'll explain a little bit. Um, when you sit alone with your thoughts for any extended period of time, you will go down this bunny trail. Okay. I went down the rabbit hole. And I've been doing it a lot, you know, over the last few months. I've always been a techie person. I've always been interested in space and all the things, but I had been deep diving on certain things, especially when it comes to the sight, um, how we perceive the things around us, space, and all these other things. And I've been questioning a lot about like falling or not falling and what is that like? So let that sit there for a second, because there's the scientific, right? But then there's like, wait a minute, what is that really like, and why am I constantly thinking of these types of things? I tend to think a lot about what we're seeing, illusions, all those things. Why do we perceive certain things a certain way? One of the questions I had asked ChatGPT one time recently, because I've been on a plane several times in the last month or so, was when and I knew logically, but I wanted it to tell me again. I asked ChatGPT, I said, I'm flying at night and I'm looking out the window. It's just me. And it's always fascinating when you see the wing of the airplane just sitting almost like it's floating in the dark. We were high up. We had come through a point in the atmosphere where it was really, really clear. And I noticed that obviously, so the wing of the plane is anchored to the plane, right? So, you're going to see motion and the things relative to that. But I was looking at the sky, and I know logically, because we had such a clear, we were higher up and the atmosphere was quite clear. I was looking at the stars and I was like, boy, these stars seem so close. How can that be? And of course, I went to the scientific explanation about um, what happens when there's very little atmosphere. And it broke down some things like what pilots see when they're flying over a period of time. And you guys can go look it up and what that's called. And I forgot the name of it, but it talks about how, like, obviously we like to use things like motion, parallax, and everything like that to help us with our depth perception. And I do have a point to all this. And if you could just hang with me, just hang with me. I was nerding out on that kind of thing. But then this is the thing. No, I'm not going to jump to that point yet. A month or two ago, I had this crazy dream, and I was in a car with my kids. And it was so vivid. It doesn't seem like anything to you, but it was very real to me. I had my kids in the car, and it was foggy, and we were driving at a good clip. And all of a sudden, as we were rolling, let's say we're doing like 80, 85. I don't know why we were going that fast in the fog, but suddenly, right in front of me, it scared the crap out of me, was this bridge. And we know when you're looking off into the distance, um, parallel lines tend to converge, right? That's how we process depth perception and all the things. So in this dream, I'm like gunning it to this bridge, and the shapes were shaping. What I mean by that, like everything seemed very crisp, right? The lines were converging off into the distance, and it was just very crisp. And I don't know how to describe it, I don't know how to name it. It was very distinct. The bridge looked so big, it looked like I was experiencing a form of megalophobia. And if you don't know what that is, that's like the fear of big things. And I was like, why is this bridge got me over here cracking up in my dreams? So the bridge, it looked like a huge suspension bridge. I have a point to this and the whole Lucifer thing. And so I am like gunning it to this bridge. I got my kids in the car, and this extreme panic takes hold of me in this dream. I get to this bridge and I see this huge bridge, and the parallel lines are no longer paralleling. They're going off into the distance, because that's how we judge um, distance. And I recognize that I was definitely having this fear of megalophobia, because usually things that are close lets you that they're larger in your point of view. But this thing was so big, and yet it was so far away. I was like, oh, this is big. So I get to this bridge, and then I stop. That's it. I just stopped. Like I was somehow, the panic was so great, and I stopped. So now I've been thinking about space and and motion parallax and depth perception and some other weird things. Another video for that. And I had this bridge and all sort of stuff. And I'm like, if I race off to the end of this bridge, I'm gonna fall. And somehow I stop. I don't know. I just stop. So this morning, so remember yesterday, I was talking about how I'm not emotionally invested in a lot of things. Like I just don't have it to give. Yesterday, I completed that video. This morning, I wake up, I was on the TikTok, and somehow I ran across someone talking about one of the first sins in the Bible. And I was thinking about Lucifer. So this is the interesting thing, because I felt like right now I've been researching all these things, the unknown, the things, trying to understand what am I processing. There's the things that you see and the things you don't see. There's the things that you see and the things you don't see. And I shouldn't be trying to assign meaning to all these things, but this is just where I'm at with it. All of these dreams and the things that I'm trying to understand, the things that you can see and not see. And then this thing comes up on Lucifer. And just previously, let me see, I was at work and I was writing down old things that I had not studied in a while. And you want to know what came to my mind? I wrote down 3 things. And one of them, well, 2 of them. 2 Timothy, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. And it just talks about basically how you want to serve God and ministry, stuff like that, because we don't physically go into the church, right? We watch our church online now ever since COVID, but we do go. We do attend. But it was deeper than that, because then there was another one. I was talking about how the Lord says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet, and all those things, right? I don't know if those things are really related to this conversation, but the Lucifer thing was talking to me today, and I realized there's multiple things happening there. One, I feel like the call was coming from inside the house, inside of me, like I hadn't been studying. But two, I realized the reason why I haven't been really all that emotionally invested in a lot of things is I feel like I was falling. I just felt like I was falling. I'm like, what is this? Because I couldn't focus on anything else because I felt like I was falling. That bridge, I was racing off this gigantic bridge, and all I can remember was these parallel lines that were converging off into the distance, but things were racing towards me so quickly, and the bridge was bridging. It was so big, and yet it was so far. I couldn't judge the depth, right? I could not judge where does the end start and stop. And I don't expect people to understand where I am and where I'm going with this, right? But just hang in there with me. I know logically large things, let me rephrase that, things that are closer to you, that's how we judge depth, right? They will appear larger. And obviously, the farther away, they are smaller. Things converge off into, I forgot what that point is, etc. But yet, everything was like right there in front of me, and it was so large. But then it was like these vanishing points, and I could not make judge of my distance, the depth of what it was. But there was such impending doom, and I'm like, why are my kids in the car with me? Where's my husband, right? So, my husband always thinks I'm crazy, but there was something that had not sat right with me. So, like I said, I was on TikTok. I was listening to somebody say something about Lucifer. I was just trying to look up some like funny videos on like cats and dogs and, all the funny things. Maybe, everybody's like going crazy with Richard Smallwood and anything else that's funny. It could have been reality TV, whatever. But this thing about Lucifer, I can't shake it. So I I I I went down a rabbit hole. I didn't pull out a Bible. I went to ChatGPT. Now I know this seems like, why is she using ChatGPT? And I was looking up the fall of Lucifer, and I realized, number one, I don't know why this has been lingering on me. I'm like, this falling thing is getting next to me. So maybe that's why I was having this video yesterday about like, it was like grieving not giving an SHIT. I'm sitting here ready to cuss, right? I didn't care. But the interesting thing about it was I went down a rabbit hole and I realized Lucifer was never really named in the Bible. Lucifer was the Latin. Let me go back to what I learned. Lucifer was the Latin translation for how we refer to Satan before the fall. I also learned, now I need to go corroborate this. Lucifer was never an archangel. He was a cherub. It's like, wait, what? And here just the other day, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needs, well, that's not exactly the verse, but it basically was letting me know you need to study the Bible. Lucifer is a Latin translation. I'm going to butcher this, but they were like, that's not a real name in the Bible. Oh, somebody's leaving comments. Yes. It's Catholic. I would probably have to say it is Catholic for sure. And I had been saying, oh, there's these three archangels. You have Michael, Gabriel, and Lucifer. And Gabriel may not actually be an archangel. I think we are saying archangel. I think the only one that's really been called out was Michael. But all this time, Satan was a servant of Satan. Satan is now he is a fallen angel, now demon. And I'm not going to just let all these things just show up on here because I don't want to possibly have someone, say some things. Now, I haven't gone back to cross-reference anything, but I was like, Lucifer is not an archangel. So then I was like, well, what is the Hebrew name for that? And now this is just ChatGPT. I have not gone back and cross-referenced in the Bible. They said the Satan before the fall was never named. God did not name him, because I look at it like, if I want to go back to the ground truth, I need to get the Hebrew translation, whatever. So there was they said the Hebrew translation wasn't necessarily for Lucifer, and I don't want to butcher this, so please forgive me. It was Hillel, Hellel. Gotta find this because I had it on here, and so it was talking to me more. I was just like, my spirit wasn't right, because I was like, let me get this right. There was a Hebrew. Where was it? Hold on one second. Let me get my life together here. What I will say was, what we consider to be Lucifer was not an archangel. He was not an archangel. I also learned that when that sin of you trying to, the pride and then wanting to be like God, when what we know now is Satan was cast from heaven and he took a third of the angels, he was a cherub. He was not an archangel. I was like, oh my goodness. And I know I'm not trying to take his name in vain, but I literally was like, oh my God, because I need to go study. And I was feeling like, is this falling that I'm feeling, like grieving what I thought I knew, and now I I see with new eyes? I don't know. So then, you go down this rabbit hole. I'm like, so Lucifer was the Latin name for the translation, and I might be butchering this, of what the Hebrew would call, I want to say it's Hillel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Please forgive me. Hellel. And, he was considered the shining one, very beautiful. What we've learned, right? He was this beautiful cherub angel, whatever, really gorgeous, she's light shining brightly, blah, blah, blah. So you have Michael the archangel, Gabriel the messenger, which I thought was an archangel, and I'm not sure if he was an archangel, but we know Michael was, the warrior. And then there's what we would call, in the Latin translation, Lucifer. And they never gave him an official name before the fall. At least it's not named in the Bible. I was like, this is deep, because I feel like I'm falling from what I thought I knew, and I didn't. I'm like, how did I miss this? How did I miss this? So now I'm sitting here, because I keep going down the rabbit hole, and like I said, I don't. This video is not for everybody, and I don't concern myself with those things because I don't. Hence me grieving, like I just can't emotionally invest in things that it's just not doing it for me. So then I'm like, what's the difference between Satan and the devil? And ChatGPT said, if you want to summarize it, Satan is what he is, the devil is what he does. And so they were saying, like, Satan is the accuser, he's opposed to God and humans, and it's not a personal name, it's like his role, it's his title. Whereas the devil is known as being the deceiver, the slanderer. That's what he does. Like, he's a devil. He is, like, it's almost like yes, it says right here, he lies and deceives. So now I'm sitting here like, I have gotten so far away from rightly dividing the word of truth. Satan was described as an anointed cherub. I believe it was out of Ezekiel before the fall. So then I was like, well, what's a cherub or cherubim? How is that different from an angel? And now, like I said, this is Chat GPT. Okay. I have not gone back and cross-referenced anything in the Bible yet. So take this with a grain of salt. But Chat GPT is giving you the Bible verses for all this too. And it says in Ezekiel 28:14, Satan is described as an anointed cherub before the fall. So I was like, what's the difference between a cherub and an archangel? A cherubim or a cherub is a guardian or an attendant. It is not like a chief angel. And so archangels and cherubims are different. They're ranks and types of angels. Let me go back. Your cherubim can be a guardian or an attendant. Your archangel is like a leader or commander of the angels, like Michael the archangel, like commands the warriors into battle, that type of thing. So here I am, going down all these rabbit holes, and I was like, I don't know anything. All I know was over the last few months, I've been trying to just reconcile certain things, right? And I know I just spiritually, maybe, I don't know what it was, but I was like, I don't care about any of this stuff right now. I was seeking understanding and not even knowing what it was I was seeking. That bridge thing, which seems like nothing to some, but it was very real and vivid to me. I still remember the shape. Like, why is this shape so important? I remember feeling like I see this going off into the distance. Why am I feeling such impending doom? Why is this so big and yet it seems so far? And I'm like, is this a big problem? Is this I don't know. And then I'm like looking up this stuff on like Lucifer and the fall from heaven. I'm like, there was no Lucifer. That has never, that is not the name of, I was like, oh my gosh. And I grew up Baptist, by the way. He was never really named before the fall. It was more like his role in what he did. But I got to go back and confirm. They never called out what his name was before the fall. We learned what he is and what he does after the fall. We learned he is Satan and that he is like he is the devil, like he does devil, like he lies and deceives. That's what a devil is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why did God never name Satan before the fall? We know what his name was, and that wasn't even his name. We learned what he was after the fall. So anyway, getting back to all the things I was talking about. So now I got all this emotional conservation going on because I realized like I cannot dedicate a whole lot of mental cycles to things that don't really matter right now. By the way, completely unrelated to this is how I know the ADD is kicking in. My face feels really tight. It feels so dry. I think all I want to do is go upstairs, wash my face, and put on some like serum and moisturizer. Okay, back to the point. So anyway, when I get back to this, I was looking up some of my talking points that I did not go in order, by the way. And I was like, the nuance of this whole Lucifer thing. It's like, I haven't been studying anything. And yet the fall, Satan's fall seems to be, I don't know why I'm thinking about it. I just went down the whole bunny trail and why this is, I don't know. I feel like I have been preserving my energy and my thoughts towards mental things that are more meaningful to me. I don't know. I don't expect anyone to want to engage in this kind of conversation. I think most people enjoy the act of being outraged over a lot of the shenanigans we see playing out in the media. I don't. I don't even deal with it right now. I think about my children's education and my health. As far as I know, I'm in good health. I think about my husband, I think about my family. But this Lucifer fall thing and finding out that Lucifer is not even a real name. I was like, what? This is how I know that I haven't been studying enough. And I'm going to tell you something else. I'm supposed to be in Bible studies on Mondays, and I join in. This is a virtual Bible study, but I barely pay attention, and I don't know if it's because I need to change the Bible study. I'm just kind of like, I don't want to hear a whole lot of hollering. I think where I am right now is when you're trying to get to the bottom of things, for me, I think I'm like weeding out noise. I'm weeding out the noise. And I remember in the past when I would learn new things in the Bible, whatever, I would have this feeling of fear or I'd be scared, and I don't know why. Today, I just feel like calm. I don't know what made me go down this bunny trail today with the whole Lucifer thing, and I'm thinking about space and what I'm seeing, and then the bridge and the converging off, and then I could be just assigning um, relationships and parallels that may not be it at all. What I do know is I had these amalgamation of thoughts, and it's the same thoughts over and over again. And I'm like, I don't know what they mean, but I do feel like something about the Lucifer thing and the falling from heaven, that was not his name. That was a translation, a Latin translation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know. Read the Hebrew scriptures. Okay. I'm going to end here because apparently I don't even know how to close out of this. Yeah. Let me know your thoughts. Until next time.